No, I can
Okay, it's 6 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda. Second.
Brian Adrian. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to approval of the meeting minutes on October 8th.
All motion to approve.
Ryan, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Do you have any community values?
Nobody signed it.
Okay. Okay, we'll move on to probably the most exciting part of the whole meeting. We got the state champion softball team here and a state champion golf.
Do you want to go first?
I don't care.
Come here. We'll go with our golf first.
All right.
Okay. All right. You want to tell the board your name and and everything you do?
My name's Hayden. Just sports.
Yeah, just sports. What's your flag?
I play golf for Frontier.
Okay.
Hayden Wendell was on the Frontier golf team and part of their foursome. They take forward to the final round of the state golf tournament. He was one of the four. And Frontier was the 2A state champion for golf, boys champion. We want to, brag about our university kid playing on the team. So tell them about your couple rounds of state. And how you went.
Both rounds were really fun. The group that I was in was very fun, very talkative, not very quiet, and people that you could get along with. Day one was a struggle, and bounced back on day two.
Awesome.
And your scores?
Yeah.
I shot 83 on the first day, and then bounced back with 74 on day Maybe.
Those scores are usually our 9-hole scores, probably.
What grade are you in?
I'm a senior.
You're a senior? Awesome. Well, congratulations.
Congrats.
And then we have a majority of our softball girls here and their parents. Coach Hutton, Chris Hutton over here, I'll let you talk about the softball team. And Coach Hutton, please, she takes a lot of time off during softball season, so she doesn't really do her real job as like an engineer and a softball instructor and all that kind of stuff. So I think she's a little jet lagged right now, so she's got the trophy, so we're not going to hold that against her. But go ahead. Coach Hutton, go ahead. We'll let you talk about the softball season, and then
Have the team come up here.
yeah, come on up, girls.
Well, this is them.
This is them,
Our
huh?
state champs. Thank you for inviting us. We're flattered to be here. We've had a fun couple weeks celebrating, doing crazy things, and we have more things to come. The season was amazing. We went 27-2. Our only two losses were during our own tournament, where we lost to state-ranked Palmer Ridge and Elizabeth, yeah. And those were our only 2 losses, and they are 4A teams. So our biggest, I think our biggest wins this year were obviously in the regular season when we upset Eaton at their house in great fashion. It was tied 7-7.
Yeah.
And then we went 8 innings and held them on defense on their ground. And so we won the Patriot League with that win, and our regional tournament, we won those regional. And then we were seeded number 1, which is a huge advantage of the state because you're always home team, and that helps on to have that home field. And got through our first 3 games, and of course we got to come up against Eaton again. And I think Chassell likes to stack us up, so it works out that way. So that's kind of how it works. And they were ranked number 2, and we were ranked number 1. We met up with them at the end, and 4-4 going into the 7th inning, and we were a home team. Right before that, though, to get to that last inning, when Eaton was visitors, Emma here in the front made a clutch catch to keep them from scoring in foul territory, diving at the fence, and sealed that half inning. So then we went into that last part of the inning, came up and got on, and then Sydney hit her to third. Our 4-hole got up, and Jazzy hit her to third, and then Jazzy hit her a nice little bloop shot into right field, and we scored. And it's been that way since. Real proud of these girls. They worked hard. Our staff has worked hard with them mentally and physically, and made sure they were in great condition. So we really added this year is the conditioning and making sure their bodies were in shape and they were doing healthy intakes. So just a great group of kids. This year was believe. We believed in each other. No one was alone. Fears. Talked about our fears. This group is. There they are.
Question. So how did it feel to get that big win at the end?
Adrenaline rush.
Yeah. Well, we've lost to Eaton 2 or 3 times in the state finals. Yeah, so it's some common time.
So it felt better being Eaton then, right?
Oh, yeah. Anybody else would have been like me?
I mean, it means more to me that we beat Eaton.
Yeah.
That's a big deal, so. Well, congratulations.
Congratulations.
That's
Amazing. Great wins.
Thank you for coming tonight. We really appreciate it.
We got senior boards on Monday.
Thank you again for having me.
Yes, thank you.
My keys are
All right, we'll move on to staff reports, and we will start with technology.
I don't know if I have to stand, but I can look at this. Yeah, just wanted to let you be aware that we're in the next E-rate season already. E-rate is that FCC program that allows schools to take advantage of huge discounts on internet service providers and core network equipment. So we do have money approved for the next 5 years that we can spend each year. We still have to fill out proper forms and so forth, but we're getting the same discount, so that translates into us spending up to it's almost $200,000. So we've got nearly $400,000 that's qualified. So it's a even with our internet service provider, if it costs $1,000 a month, under normal circumstances, we're paying $600 a month. So the focus for this first year is going to be adding a second internet service provider so that we have some redundancy. We'll add a second firewall for redundancy as well. That way, if one firewall goes down, then the other will take over. If one ISP goes down, firewalls will be set up just to switch traffic over to the other. And the other focus is going to be continuing improvements on our wireless, putting in next generation wireless access points, which we started this past year, and will be over 50% renewed after this coming year. Any questions? No video, no slides.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yep, thanks.
All right. We'll move on to safety and security.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Happy to be here.
We'll see, we'll see.
Hi, everybody. Again, just get my glasses on. Director of Operations, Dennis Navarro here reporting. Security real quick. Standard response protocol. The drills that we accomplished, especially today, was a serious lockdown drill. Did very excellent. We had good feedback, especially with our electronic door system. That was awesome. It worked really well. And of course, the staff and the students did exceptionally well as well, just adapting to what they needed to do. Obviously, nothing's perfect, but things went as expected. We did our security drill. We're on task, on schedule, doing what we need to do each semester. Our PA communication system, led by Jeff Lemons here, as well. I've been on task with that. Pretty good, but we're planning that more and more. So I have to do a lot of work to that. We're in good now with our contractors installing and we're moving along with that. Good news for our camera system upgrades that we were approved for. We have that going on as well, so it's more of a technical thing, but it's going to be better overall as we plan for the future. As you guys know, technology is rapidly changing. It assists us with more coverage, less cameras, but the adaptability, AI, implementation, stuff like that. Really, really good for the school and for the safety and security of the school. I'm involved in seeking grant opportunities. That's what we're trying to look into now with BEST grant stuff and whatnot. And so that's going to be heating up here real soon. So we're working hard to get some, hopefully, safety and security in these best interests of the school. Moving on, one of the biggest highlights for our security was that we were able to get 5 kindergarten safety presentations to the students. You guys ever been to the kindergarten class? For 10 minutes? Oh my gosh, it felt a whole day. But man, those smiles and that energy, it was worth it. And I lost my voice toward the 5th one, but man, they were awesome. And I really applaud teachers for including us, wanting us to talk to these little ones, and they still remember our name. So it was really nice to just sit down with them and start and work through that. We're hoping to do other grades. Operations-wise, we have new kitchen equipment, great, spectacular ovens. We're getting ready for working with Roach Constructors or GC to start implementing our new cafeteria, elementary school cafeteria and multi-use room. We're hoping that starts November 22nd, Saturday. It's a Saturday. That's Thanksgiving week, but we hope to get that going real soon. Making plans to do that. Polar King, if you haven't seen it, it's this big, beautiful salmon-looking thing. It's awesome. It fits perfect. You should have seen it. But it's definitely going to be nice for the new kitchen support, especially with the new cafeteria. And then student lunch vending machines. Have you ever heard of this? Nice student lunch vending machine. The lunches will be acquired by the students once it's up and running, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. We get the free lunches, put in the student number, and D6, our D6 partners, kitchen staff working hard through that, so.
Lily, be happy to know we moved it.
And we did move it from an area, we took some students, right? And then we're evaluating emergency backup systems here at the school, at the campus. As you know, we want to make sure we're robust in that area with power and what else goes down, so working through that. And then I just want to recognize Director of Operations, Safety Security. We have a high school student intern. It's amazing. Like everyone else gets intern, we have one right there. Lily Vanetta. She's been doing great, helping us with a lot of projects that we're working. Her and then Jane Melito is our high school leader. Really want to recognize that student involvement. It's very valuable.
Awesome.
So you won.
Good try.
That's all I have. Any questions?
What was your time?
4:32.
I want to know what class is making Christmas cookies in those new ovens first.
I'll try to find that out.
Okay.
I expect big things like that too.
I got another question. Lily, are you doing all right?
Doing great, actually. We did get some.
Good. All right.
Are you learning anything? Wait.
Yeah, actually.
Oh, she had to think. There was a pause.
She's learned so much, she couldn't remember.
Okay. All right. We're just making sure, checking on her well-being. So.
Thanks for so much.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to principal update from Mazzarana Elementary School.
All right, thanks. Veterans Day was this week, and we had a poll coming around by some second graders, third graders. Should we get Veterans Day off? And they said we should take every Veterans Day off. And I said, well, I noticed there aren't many no's on your thing because they were getting ready to write my name, and it was yes. And I said, well, it'd be hard because it's always November 11th. I'm not sure how that would work out, maybe. And so they put my name down as a no and basically looked at me and said, you're mean. But then they went over to Miss Weaver. Miss Weaver's smarter than I am. Miss Weaver said, well, what day would you trade out? So they got kind of confused and just left Miss Weaver. She was not called mean.
I'm not on the page. That's all
Now,
I know.
you are not on that page. I am on the no page because I was trying to figure out how the November 11th we would figure that out each year, and they were not happy with that. There was a lot of people on the yeses, and so when I talked to Assistant Principal Cora Halna, I said, well, how did you vote? She's like, I said, yes. Those kids are cute. I was like, okay, yeah, you definitely did it right. So, elementary school, last year we started kind of like a student council, a leadership group, and it has just taken off this year in a good way and done so many neat things. They started raising some money for some playground equipment. They bought 150 blankets. Some of you probably saw them at football games. They sold out in 2 hours. So they've ordered a whole bunch more, and they're going to keep raising money for some playground equipment. They've also started doing weekly announcements. This wasn't possible because we never had a time where everyone in the elementary had moments in the morning where they could listen to announcements, but they started doing announcements. Ms. Halma has helped them out with that. A couple people in our office have helped them out. And it is the highlight of my week, listening to a couple of people tell some jokes and give an update and talk about lunch, and it's a lot of fun. So they've taken over that. They've also taken over flag duty, so hanging our flags out. That is something that Mr. Whitcomb has done for a while, and Ms. Woodjerfen has done for a while, and now student leadership is putting up the flags and taking down the flags, so that's been fun. 5th grade is working on some community service projects. They've been volunteering at food banks, nursing homes, hospitals, libraries. They've been picking up trash in neighborhoods. They've been coaching younger kids and all sorts of different things. So they've kind of taken that on as their project for this first semester. 3rd grade came to me and said about a month ago, we're going to the Weld Food Bank. We'd like to have a contest of, gathering up some of the cans that people deliver in. And I said, that's a great idea. Little did we know that the government was going to shut down pretty soon, and some people were definitely going to need some food. So counselors then stepped in, kind of took it over as a K-12 option, and they've been running that. As of last Friday, elementary had brought in over 1,800 non-perishable items, and I bet they doubled that today. I think Friday is one of the last days, but they collected today as well and brought it down there. It's probably close to, just with elementary, 4,000 items down in the pantry. So if you haven't been down there to look at the pantry, it is overflowing with stuff, and we're going to have to think about some good ways to get that out to our community in better ways so people can come in and use that, because it is, the generosity of our school is unmatched sometimes. When we have a goal, we set our mind to it, it was really cool to see everything pour in, and pretty overwhelming for the counselors who are hauling 4,000 items down there and trying to stack it on shelves in certain areas, and it was impressive. So I was really, really proud of our community and our counselors in third grade for kind of getting that going. Battle of the Books has started. So typically there's 4 or 5 teams per grade level with 4 or 5 kids on each team, so maybe 60 kids. This year we have 82 kids out, so another stellar group of kiddos who are going to read 6 or 7 books and remember minor details that you can't even imagine that are in books. They're pretty hysterical listening to some of those questions. And then finally, one of the things that was sent to me was Art Club. Art Club's going to have an art show on November 21st from 5 to 6. So if your students or you want to stop by, we're in Art Club this go around. There's going to be an art show. It says 5th grade made some haunted houses. 4th grade is working on some stuff for their concert. They made some Colorado clay pieces. 3rd grade made dream cities, so they kind of thought up their dream city. That should be fun to see how many arcades and ice cream shops are in there. 2nd grade is doing a shoe project on the old lady who lived in a shoe. So they're creating, if they lived in a shoe, what would be in their house. That's pretty creative. 1st grade is doing printmaking, and kindergarten is doing architecture. So those will all be on display November 21st in the art show for elementary. And that's what I have.
Any questions for Mike? All right. Thank you, Mike. We'll move on to the superintendent's update.
So as Dennis mentioned, we are getting ready over break to kick off the cafeteria edition. We're super excited for that. We finally picked our floor. They sent us samples, and we found everything we could find that would stain in the school and put them all over the samples. And then our cleaning crew came in and tried the different cleaning solutions that they have to see which one is best. Dennis was hiding it all through the cafeteria under tables to see what the pressure points were like. So we have thoroughly vetted the floor. But I'm really excited that we found something that'll be durable enough to work in the cafeteria, and also the right quality for shared pumps, because I know it's really important to all of us to try to have a multi-purpose space. And they often, as you've heard from them for a couple years now, end up wherever there's a spot somewhere in the building. So I'm really excited that we found something that will work for both. We also, like I told you last month, we're looking at different dismissal softwares. We settled in on Raptor for a couple reasons. One being that that's already the system. You all use it as parents when you're checking in and out of the office, and also do your background check on filters and those kind of things. So we already had 2 modules from Raptor that we've had for a very long time. So Dismissal Safe will give us the ability, basically, if you think of it, if you ever picked up groceries, if you ever order groceries online, and then you click in to tell them that you're here, and then they send your kiddo out, basically, how it'll work. Eventually, you'll have a QR code that you scan. Maybe one day, we're trying to negotiate a little partnership maybe for some license plate readers. So then you don't even have to do anything, but just drive and do work. But first round of that will probably be QR codes. You'll scan in as you show up. You'll get to stay in the classroom with the teachers. They'll report, they'll show up basically like a queue. So it'll say that correctly, here are the 5 parents that are here. Kids will go out and get met. So we've got a lot of work to do to implement that, as you can imagine. It's a pretty complicated process. So we're going to take it step by step. Our goal right now is to implement the first stage of that, which is to have designated areas. So we'll have 3rd through 5th graders in the high school loop. K through 2, we'll keep it at Clark loop. Our walkers, we're going to start sending out either the math hallway or the playground hallway. So trying to really have that be a little chaotic. Those of you that have been through it, it's a little nuts. And so we're hoping that we'll be able to reduce the time that it takes. The group was just over at Frontier Monday checking out, because they run it from their classrooms. They use a different application, but they use a very similar process. As I mentioned, we had the opportunity to visit New Vision and also Rest. So we've gotten to see a couple of different versions. So we're feeling good that our process will be able to be more efficient and also safer. Right now, if a kid doesn't make it to where they're supposed to be, you call us, we have no idea where they were dismissed, right? The school is just never done that. Now we'll be able to see, here's the license plate, the QR code that checked in at this time, here's who picked them up in which loop. So from a safety standpoint, I think it's huge progress. And also, the way that our dismissals are staggered right now, we really want to get elementary completely finished before the high school. That will get us down closer to about 20 minutes. So we're excited to work through that process, and like I said, we're going to move forward with phase 1 when we get back from Thanksgiving break, which is a natural fit because that's when construction and events will be up and things will get started. So it'll take a lot of tweaking, and I know a long time to get it exactly right, but I'm excited to take some steps in the right direction. Softball was obviously a huge accomplishment for us. I think almost every year since I've been here, we were playing Eaton in the finals. So I'm really proud of them for getting over that hump and really being able to keep persevering until they got there. Band also, I know lots of you were there. Band took 2nd place, which they've only been an official marching competition band for 2 years. So to already be in 2nd place would be amazing for them. They were so excited about it. RJ, the grant that we're working on with Weld County, we had another training in-service day this November. So our consultants on Bonnie and Everett were here to work with us. That was a really good session on how to facilitate restorative conversations in the classroom, and that was really well received. iReady Learning Walks were a great opportunity. Our consultant from iReady came. We had real specific course. This time we were student discourse. Our students were talking about math in the classroom. If you remember from our math team that presented to you, that was something we do when we try and improve was kids not only getting the basics in traditional computation parts of math, but that they really understood the conceptual part of it. We talk about it with each other, contrast, problem solve. So we got to see actually 6-ish elementary classrooms, I think 4 middle and 4 high in a day, and it was great. We came out from every class. At the end of the day, we all sat down together and determined some next steps. We decided to focus on there's a particular part of the iReady lesson where you take advantage of problems that the kids already solved. So instead of the teacher giving up and going over the 3 ways to solve this problem, if those 3 ways were already represented in the classroom, the teacher's pulling that there. Okay, you got this one right, you got it this way, you tried it this way, show it to the class. And so that was sort of the area that we focused on. But we saw great things. And obviously we've only gone through an iReady implementation in this building. And so we asked our consultant for some feedback on, hey, you've been hundreds of these. Is this, at this point of the year, where people normally at, what should we look for signs that things are on track. And she felt like we were well ahead of schedule because she said typically this time of the year, so we did that a couple weeks ago. She said that really what she's looking for is that everybody has materials out, that they're using them, that they're becoming familiar with them. So she was really impressed with how much ownership our teachers had already taken. And it was super cool for me to get to see what that looked like all the way from K-12, not 12, to Asheville 1. So it was great to see that a very similar format in terms of try the problem, let's explain our problem, let's talk about the problem. Even though that looks really different in kindergarten than in Asheville 1, it's the same process. It was really cool. So that was a great day. We really enjoyed that. Let's see what else. High school had their first, actually today, they've set up a weekly AI lunch group that Katie's hosting. If we feed the lunch, people come. So we had a good group today for the first time out. And Katie really started sharing with them some resources to really try to go deeper into that conversation of what are the ways that we want to make sure that we're building AI into our curriculum, and what are the ways we want to mitigate the concerns that we have for how we're working in the classroom. I wasn't there, but I talked to Jeff and Katie both today, who said things went really well. So that's something that we're intending to create to do with high school, because those are the only teachers that will come with lunch. So it works better to do it with high school. But they're meeting every week. Katie also has on all the maintenance service days, she runs 2 sessions. One's a team will have, and one's an AI session, and that one's not at capacity every month. So we're definitely interested in learning more and trying more. And Katie's also in a regional think group that we try to share as educators around Colorado what's happening and what they're trying, what's working well and what's not. So she brought a lot of great information back from that. Katie also just got back from presenting. She got selected to present the national conference on some of the research that she's doing in instructional technology. Because she's working there, but she's also a faculty student at UNC. So that was some exciting things happening in the tech world with our teachers. I wanted to shout out Trunk or Treat. I don't know how many of you were there, but it was absolutely insane. We had, depending on, so 5th grade, another shout out to the 5th grade community service, he decided he wanted to do that for his community service project. So we're normally on the treat side of things, so we joined the trunk side of things this time, and he designed and decorated the trunk and handed out all the candy, and I think we went through about 1,500 pieces, but I think there were some people handing out certificates that said they handed out almost 2,000. So it was absolutely packed. So I love that we're able to provide a safe place for all of our kids, and certainly lots of kids that were not ours, to come and have a great experience. I really appreciate how hard USPTO advertised that to get people here and also to get trunks. I think we ended up 70-ish.
72 or 3 cars.
Yeah.
We started out with like 12. LULAC started that a few years ago with 12, and kids went through the trunks like 10 times. And to see what it has turned into is amazing.
Yeah, we added a whole extra section. If you weren't here, a whole extra section this time. Normally it was just kind of through the loop, but now it's expanded all the way out to a whole another section. So it was a really great night for kids. It was really fun to see how excited people were to be there. There was a 6-7 trunk right next to mine, and then the 5th grade teachers did like a lockup situation, and they posted all of the sayings that kids are throwing at them that they're tired of hearing. So there were lots of funny things. So that was really great. I enjoyed that. I was going to also highlight the food drive. That truly is remarkable. I was watching. Wasn't sure they were going to make it down and back, but they did. But this morning, just cart after cart was going down, full of our leadership kids, taking it down to the pantry. I love that our counselors have been taking kids down to help them put away things, to organize things. So they're not just bringing things in for a competition, they're really connected to trying to make sure that our community is well cared for. And it's been awesome to watch. we got word that in Weld County, there are about 26,000 people who were impacted by their SNAP benefits being cut off, and the vast majority of that are children. And so I appreciate all that the Success Fund does and District 6 does to keep our pantry here stocked on a regular basis, but the fact that our kids chipped in to really support each other and their classmates, that was really incredible to watch. They've been taking, we'll try to send them out eventually, but they've been taking sort of time lapse, so you can see before how bare the shelves were getting, and now they're packed full of things. So really proud of our kids and how hard they've been working, not only to bring the food in, but like I said, to take it down, to organize it, to try to learn about generosity in the community. I think it's been great. I was going to highlight money. They talked about a few of them. We are looking for, I know that's always our goal, right, to continue to find alternate revenue sources. So E-rate, again, just a reminder, that's only last year. The first year we ever applied for that. So to be able to get so many of our tech needs met at 50% off, I really appreciate Jeff working on that. I've been trying to finish up. Sue tried to finish it, is working on finishing up the first year. I'm working on applying for the second year of the Facilities Assistance Program. We got about 238.
Well, we budgeted that, I think we're going to get about 2
Sweet. For this year, it declines a little bit each year, but unless who knows in this day and age. But hopefully, everything's planned right now that we'll receive another award of that. As Dennis mentioned, we're going to work on submitting another bus grant geared towards some safety and security things that we need. We've got a meeting pretty quickly with the intent to apply is due December 5th. So we're working on that. And you heard all about high school, middle school. We're sort of in that in-between season, right? So we finished fall sports, and some of our other winter sports haven't started, but right now basketball is going. So we've got 7th and 8th grade boys happening right now. If you come, gosh, it feels like almost every day. For school, they're in the gym playing. They've made a lot of progress. I feel like watching middle school basketball sometimes look like watching colts with their, they haven't quite grown into their arms and legs yet, but they're really good. Both teams, the B teams are undefeated and the A teams have only lost at both grade levels, only lost 1 game so far. So that's kind of a short season, it's right in the middle of things, but if you have a chance to go check them out, they've been playing great. That's all I have.
Questions for Jennifer? Okay. Business manager's update.
We've got both September and October financials that we get caught up finally on getting those to you. We're going to talk about October just because it's the most recent month. Third of the way through the budget, 33%. If you want to turn to the balance sheet for the general fund, October, I'm going to try to explain a couple things on this. Because actually you can see some everybody to stop me if you don't understand. Okay, so three things you're going to see on the balance sheet for the general fund right now. The first thing under the assets, you're going to see the prepaid expense kind of towards the bottom there. And under the liabilities, you're going to see deferred revenue, and you're going to see transfers and capital fund. The transfers into the capital fund, that was the $100,000 that you guys moved from capital back to general. The other two are related to the middle that we get our funding. District 6 agreed that if they were getting their funding from the state over 9 months, that we should also get our funding over 9 months. Good for us because we're going to get the money up front. We can put that in our money market. It's of interest to us. Yeah. The hard part to understand is that when you receive income or you prepay an expense, in your bookkeeping, you still can only recognize or show on your financial statements 1/12 of it. what 1/12 of our money is going to be our expenses. I post that to the income and the expenses. The remaining dollars that we get are either going to go into deferred revenue, which is the money they're giving us ahead of time, or prepaid expense, which is special ed, infinite campus, all the things that we purchase from District 6. They're full deferred. Does that kind of make sense? So what we're going to see is we're going to see that deferred revenue and that prepaid expense increase, as well as our cash and our money market. Between now and February. March, they will not pay us for. So I'll basically just do a journal entry, a book entry, to reduce the deferred revenue, the prepaid expenses. So then it's still in the holding balance sheet. We will get money again in April. We won't get money again in May or June. So by June 30th, theoretically, what will happen is when I do all those book entries, revenue will be zero, prepaid expenses will be zero in June because we found it. So when you see millions of dollars in our money market account, know that we have about $4.5 million that we're going to get that we have to move to the general fund checking circles for those 3 months. It's not real money. It's real money, but not real money. Yes. So keep that in mind. So do you kind of understand what I'm going there? Okay. So overall, our revenues are right where they need to be, 33%. We're even caught up on our capital construction. Yay! On the expenditures, we're also there at 33%. We just have a small deficit, net deficit of $6,831. So that's really good. Expenditures, our salary benefits look good. Our stipends are a little higher just because our fall sports, it has a lot of stipends with it. You know, a lot of sports going on in the fall. So that's usually where it consumes a lot more of the stipend pay. So that's why that's a little higher. Let's see, the vehicle rental is pretty high, and that's because we chartered a bus for the football team to go to Rifle, if I remember right. Yep. So that was kind of expensive, but it was the safety thing. Janitorial supplies are a little higher than I would like to see right now, so I'm going to talk to Bertha about that. If that's just inflation and what they're costing now. And the electricity costs are a little higher also, so that's something we'll probably have to modify in our budget revision in January. Capital fund, again, on that balance sheet for capital fund, you're going to see it transfers out to general fund. Again, that's that $100,000 that went out. On the profit and loss, the interest is looking great. That's our revenue source. Our building and grounds was consumed and went over. That is the resurfacing of the track we did out there. It was about $130,000 to do that. Our furniture and equipment, the combi ovens that Dennis talked about, they're posted there, as well as that lunch vending machine that we purchased for District 6's use for vending. Under the capital projects for MLO, safety and security, we've got about $268,000 posted there, and that's part of the PA cost, the EPIC audio enhancements that we just put in. And also, we had to purchase a new video server for the cameras and recording. And then technology is pretty much the rest of it. It's about $460,000 that we're out. That's going to be, again, PA system. It's going to be our email defense system, hardware, software, licensing costs, pretty much everything that Jeff needed to improve this year is being paid for from the capital, which we knew we were going to have that this year. So. The 2020 District 6 bond, that is going to go away with a revision. I put that in there because I wasn't sure if the best grant money was going to hit last year's budget with the expenses for this year's budget, and it hit last year, so I'm going to fix all that when we do our budget revision. So the expense that's under there, I think it's like $4,000. I'm going to move that to other capital outlay, which is where Polar King that Dennis Capital Fund was very busy the last few months. John Paul will be here in a little bit with an audit. He's coming. And I think that's all I have. I'm sorry.
You have any questions for Sue? Thank you, Sue. Okay, well, we will move on to the consent agenda. We have the personnel packet. Personnel list in our packet here. Approve the consent agenda unless there's any discussion. Frank?
AJ? Yes.
Bill? Yes. Todd?
Yes.
Scott? Justin?
Oh, you're right, I'm sorry.
Eric?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Maybe try to send an email about something.
We have an audit report.
We'll go and see. I was having problems getting in.
All right.
I would move that we move on to the second reading then of the data graduation requirements.
All those in favor?
Okay.
All right. Move on to the second reading of graduation requirements.
Did anything change on here?
Nope, nothing changed. Some, if you remember from last month, just some minor administrative changes. The only substantive change was instead of only being college and career prep as a requirement, now there's the option of like only change.
Can we approve it after the second reading? Any discussion by the board?
We read out loud.
I will entertain a motion for approving graduation requirements for universities, high school.
A motion to approve graduation requirements.
Second then.
Yes. Bill?
Yes. Todd?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Justin? Eric?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Passes. So, move on
Okay, then I'll motion that we move on to the first reading of the University Schools Library Selection Policy.
Okay, all those in favor? We will move on to the first reading of the University Schools Library Selection / Reconsideration Policy. We'll let Jennifer give us a brief update on kind of overview of this, and then we can, we need to read the whole policy. policy tonight. We can go back and read it, digest it, and revisit this at the next board meeting.
So the Senate passed, as I shared with you, a bill requiring that schools have a policy. And we've never had a policy, we've always had a procedure. So this is mostly that procedure. We're lucky that our procedures align pretty closely with the model policy. Amanda and Rachel made some updates for the pieces that were required by the Senate bill. And then there were two sections. One was access control for sensitive and mature materials. And one was gifts and donations. Those sections were both added by our attorney, who pretty deeply involved currently with representing two districts that are currently in federal court. The challenges related to these policies, so those are both things that he added from a risk management standpoint. This has been to the policy committee. Just, I guess, a reminder, because this might be one that will actually utilize all of our policy process. This is first reading. It's been through a model policy, our attorney, and the policy committee. If the board makes minor changes to it, then we can continue on with the second reading. If the board makes substantive changes to the policy, then it starts over. So it would go back to our attorney, back to the policy committee, and then back to the board for first reading. So that doesn't happen very often with us, so I just want to remind you that's sort of how that works if we do that. And then also, this went into effect September 1st. So if anything happens between now and when we finalize the policy, we would follow District 6's policy. So that's where we're at time back. We continue to operate under District 6's policy until we have a replacement policy in place.
What is that policy? Do you know very much about that?
Yeah, it looks very similar. They all look very similar to this because, like I said, there was a model policy that came out of the road. So I think that the makeup of the committee is not exactly the same as ours. But in terms of the pieces that are required by law, obviously there. We only had to update or revise policy to match the new legislation. We just didn't have, and that's why the policy that you have in your packet doesn't have any of the cross-outs and additions and all the things you usually see in a policy, because technically this is a new policy. So there's nothing to cross out or add, but I did send you a markup copy that showed the changes from our so you can see from that what changes. Amanda and Rachel did a great job. I appreciate that of showing all the changes and how they align. So I did share that with you, but that's why I just need to share it on here. That's why this is a new policy.
In lieu of reading this at the meeting, can it be made publicly available in the office or something of that nature?
Yeah, we can definitely
anyone
have
who
hard
would-
copies available, but it was already shared with all of our families electronically.
Okay. Great.
Well, you don't want to be sad.
I just want to make sure it was shared. Yes, that was.
We take turns.
That was the short one.
I was just about to say that.
I know sometimes those links
Don't work.
don't work.
So it was like-
And I'm not sure how many of them we have access to.
That was my next
We
question.
need to practice again.
Our theater people, they can print it.
Okay.
Oh, we gotta make sure this-
Share.
Nope.
Okay.
We found Sean Paul.
He's there. He was waiting.
Then.
So we can set up a working session if the board wants to get together and discuss the policy. Maybe a separate meeting, just before we set time to discuss this as a board. It just depends on what everybody's interest is. If not, we'll revisit it next board meeting.
I know I've got some thoughts. Look,
I can reach out and try to schedule a working session, or however we want to try to manage that.
Just need to ensure that that's when we advertise in advance, because that would be open to.
hear community feedback before we get together and talk about it. I'm imagining there's going to be some.
What are some things that you think there might be?
Some of it, we're just going to have to educate the public that we have no choice. I think there's going to be some stuff in there people are going to like that. That's state mandate. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So if we could get ahead of that, that would be nice to save everybody's time. These are, I don't care how much you yell at us, we can't change this part.
Right.
I don't know exactly what, but I know that last time there was issue on this, there was lots of. I'd be surprised if there's not some.
I don't think we're talking about anything
Yeah.
about content. We're just outlining the process that if there is a, and I haven't read through all this yet, so I mean, it's just a process that we're talking about. We're not talking about content.
And it does match, yeah, it matches what we've done in the past. We're really pretty close.
But I mean, there is.
People might not
process
like the
there.
process.
Yeah. And you can see there were a few changes, and they do pretty much tie right back to the legal side of it, so.
Yeah, the biggest changes came from actually,
Yeah.
the just differences in the policy. And again, I'm not sure, I don't remember if that was a different color than what I sent you, but that's the section that's access control for sensitive and digital materials. And then the next one is safety regulation.
Okay, we will jump back to item 7.2, audit report. We ready?
Unmute, camera.
We ready?
I was going to say, I'll just sit on the garden.
Can you hear us?
There he is. Jean-Paul, there he is. We're ready whenever you are, Jean-Paul.
All right, sounds good. My name is John Paul Chevalier with Clifton Larson Allen, or CLA. Happy to be able to present the results of the financial statement audit for university schools. Is this a big enough screen that I'd be able to share and have everyone actually be able to see it on the screen, or should I reference page numbers for the audit report? Or I can just summarize it and kind of talk through what's included in there.
It's a large screen, Jean-Paul, so we should be able to see it.
Okay, perfect. Switch to that real quick. Okay, great. Can you see that?
Yep. We can.
Perfect. So we'll talk through the financial statements that were issued. One thing to point out is these are for the year ended June 30th, 2025. So I realize as we're kind of around the middle of November, this is dated information, but this is kind of the standard timing as it takes a number of months to be able to have everything closed and completed for the financial statements and for the audit. And then get on the board calendar as well. So this is kind of the typical timing, but won't plan to go into too much detail on the financial statements, on the actual activities and numbers within there. just knowing that, again, we are kind of a little bit dated, but we'll point out a couple of things to keep in mind. So first, we have the independent auditor's report. I'm pleased to be able to say that we were able to issue an unmodified, or informally referred to as a clean audit opinion. So what this means is that after all of our audit procedures, we believe with reasonable assurance that all of the amounts and disclosures presented within the financial statements are materially correct and can be relied upon by the board and any other parties that are reading or using the financial statements. And so what this means is that basically last year's financial information can be the starting point going into the current fiscal year. So this information should look kind of familiar with what the end of last year was, but we'll talk through in just a minute here a little bit of the results. We'll zoom in. The school does present two sets of financial statements, one that closely mirrors the budget, so this should look familiar from last year. One thing to point out is that there is a net change in fund balance, so this would be basically your revenues less your expenditures, so what would be net income or profit in the private sector world. The school did have an increase of about a little over 600,000, so showing an overall strengthening of the financial position as of the end of last year on this kind of budget basis. Obviously, the school doesn't exist to earn profit, it exists to provide a quality education to students. So this is certainly not the end-all be-all or really the most important thing that the financial statements have, but did want to just point out that obviously it's a positive thing to have an overall strengthening of the financial position. One thing that I should point out is that our audit really is just about making sure that the amounts presented in here are accurate, not that it's necessarily good or bad. That's really outside of the scope of the audit and something that the board would need to be making a decision on, kind of the trajectory of the school's financials and whether that's positive, negative, needs to be adjusted or realigned, kind of so on. The other set of financial statements here is on a more long-term basis. This normally only gets presented for governments typically once a year on the annual financial statement. So we'll point out a couple things in here just since you don't normally see them throughout the year otherwise. So these long-term financial statements, which follow similar rules to, again, kind of what public companies or companies in the private sector would be presenting. So you'll see on here that you have long-term items such as capital assets, that's primarily going to be the school building. Your non-current liabilities is going to include the long-term debt or bonds. And then also kind of the other significant item would be the net pension liability and OPEB liability. OPEB stands for other post-employment benefits. Both of those liabilities relate to the school's required participation in PARA, so that's the defined benefit pension plan. And really what this is about the kind of funded status of PARA. It's currently underfunded, and if you take the kind of small proportion of the overall contributions that university schools represent out of the overall of PARA, that leads to this amount that then gets presented on the financials. This is really kind of more of an informational amount. In my opinion, it's not something that university schools could actually even pay, even if you did have $25 million in cash sitting around, which I don't think anyone does. But even if you did, it wouldn't be something that you could write a check to PARA to pay off. It's something that going forward into the next 30 plus years, that the funded status will need to either be funded through additional employer or employee contributions, direct payments from the state, like what's been happening for the last couple of years, or a reduction in benefits, something would need to be done in order to bring that plan to the fully funded status. So that's really what that relates to. If you see the overall negative number down at the bottom, that would be very concerning if it was a public company or a private sector business. Obviously, when you're just talking about the net pension and OPEB liability, those numbers are really kind of dragging down the rest of the assets, but since that's a long-term item, that's not something that the school could repay. Really, every charter school that I've seen in Colorado presents a negative number down here. And again, once you kind of factor out the net pension liability, that's not an overall concern. There's one other thing on the within the financial statements that I wanted to spend just a second pointing out, and that's this line relating to compensated absences. Compensated absences refers to either vacation, PTO, sick leave, those types of absences is what compensated absences means. If we'll see this in one of the other audit reports, I figured I'd just point it out here. You'll notice that there is a pretty significant increase in terms of the balance. The reason for that is there was a change in the way that compensated absences is required to be recorded. Previously, this was only reported at what was required or anticipated to be paid out. That guidance changed that now it includes a portion of the unpaid time that's expected to be used actually as time off. And so there is an increase there. Typically that would be presented as an adjustment to the beginning balance, but because it wasn't that significant and would require a number of other disclosures, the decision was made that it would be shown within this additions amount. So we'll see as we kind of talk through the rest of the audit reports that you'll see this gets mentioned. So just wanted to point out what this looks like within the financial statements. So as I mentioned, there's kind of two other deliverables that I'll take a couple of minutes to go through, but did want to pause at the point if there's any questions or things that would make sense to discuss at this point before we move to the other items.
I think we're good.
Sound. So we'll move on to, this is what's referred to as the governance communication. This is a summary of, under auditing standards, we're required to communicate certain items to the governing board at the end of the audit. And so this is kind of the checklist of everything that we're required to report. If you compare this with last year, you've noticed that it's very similar each year. So I won't go through all of it, but just kind of point out a couple of things within here. If you see in this accounting policies section, you'll notice that the reference to the change for compensated absences. I should point out that that's a change that's required for governments all across the United States. It's not specific to university schools or to Colorado. And so that is kind of a national change that was required to be made effective for June 30th, 2025 year end. So again, that did change the requirement for it. And if you see in this uncorrected misstatement section, you'll notice that statement gets brought up again relating to compensated absences. This points out that really of the balance that we were looking at, about 300,000 of it relates to the change in this accounting standard and doesn't actually relate to an increase in the amount that's owed to employees or teachers as of the end of the year. So again, this is kind of just pointing out that shortcut was taken. So if you notice that there was a significant increase, it's not because there was actually a change, it's really just because of this new accounting standard. So wanted to point that out to make sure that was understood as to why that was being presented within that section. I'd also like to point out the corrected misstatements. As I mentioned, we did issue an unmodified or clean audit opinion, but that doesn't mean that there's not audit adjustments. So this section would really kind of indicate how smooth or kind of messy the audit was. I'm very pleased to be able to say that we did not have any audit adjustments that were required to be made as part of the audit process. So really an indication that the financial records when we started the audit were in really good shape. So kudos to management of the school for having very smooth audit and no audit adjustments identified in the process. So that's kind of the items I wanted to point out here. There's one other report that I'll bring up, and that's called our internal control communication. Any findings or recommendations that come from the audit would be included within this letter. We do have one item relating to segregation of duties, and this has been a consistent item shown really for probably at least the last 10 years and probably beyond that as well. What segregation of duties refers to is that within the accounting processes that are done, so making payments, paying payroll, recording cash coming in, reconciling bank accounts, all of those processes should be separated so that there's not one individual that has too much responsibility. There's always kind of the checks and balances, someone overseeing what someone else is doing, making sure that one person doesn't have too much responsibility. So anytime you have a smaller entity, such as a charter school, it's difficult to be able to properly separate that out without having a more substantial accounting or finance department. So University Schools actually has done a pretty nice job of separating everything when possible. So there's, for again, a charter school of University Schools' size, the processes are well done. There is one area though that continues to be a limitation, and I would say this is not even necessarily something that we would recommend changing. It's kind of more of something to keep in mind, we believe, on an annual basis, and that is that individuals within the accounting department have full access to the accounting system. Typically that would be limited to, so not allowing someone to go in and kind of make any changes that they want. The issue with that is that without having a lot more individuals involved in the process, that can kind of shut things down or slow things down to the pace that you're needing to have more individuals involved. So that's kind of more an efficiency versus an overall effectiveness of the internal controls that are in place. And so what we'd like to really kind of emphasize is that the board is an important part of the overall financial review process, and because of this limitation, it really emphasizes that the board should continue to review the financial information on a regular basis, make sure that the financial information looks accurate for what you would expect based on the size, number of students, other significant things going on, such as significant building renovations or improvements, that type of thing. Make sure that the financial information looks accurate for what you're expecting. So it's kind of the summary of that item, and that's really kind of all that I had to present relating to the audit. I'll pause again if there's any questions, comments, or discussion surrounding last year's audit.
Not seeing any.
Great. Well, again, that's all that I had. So I appreciate the time, and again, kudos to the school for a very clean audit, and appreciate all the hard work and effort that goes into that really year round to make the audit process smooth.
Thank you, Joe.
Right. Thank you. Bye.
Good job with this office.
Great job.
Okay. We will jump down to item 7.5, Title IX update. So Mr. Jim Donahue is here. with District 6, and he's the Title IX coordinator with D6. He's going to kind of give us a rundown of what he does.
So, yeah, I'm Jim Donohue. I'm the Director of Title IX Services and Compliance for the school district. I serve all of our district schools as well as the majority of our charters as the coordinator for all the Title IX services. Title IX has been a chaotic environment for the last 3 years. 3 years ago, we were under the 2020 regulations. 2 years ago, we were under the 2024 regulations. With the election of President Trump, we went back to 2020 regulations. The state of Colorado as a whole was doing their own thing and passed Senate Bill 2396, the Power Act, and a number of other pieces of legislation focused on equality, focused on equal access. Title IX, the whole focus of Title IX is to ensure that people in an educational institution have equal access to the institution, to the activities that are there, regardless of gender, regardless of sexual orientation. And the standards by which that access is viewed to determine if there is some sort of issue related to Title IX and that specific civil right follows what's known as preponderance. So in the criminal court system, if there were to be a finding that shows that someone had violated someone's legal rights, did a crime against someone, in order for a conviction to be entered, there would be a need to find beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay? It's a pretty hefty standard, so to speak. Title IX findings to demonstrate if there's a violation of someone's civil rights under Title IX, the standard is preponderance of evidence. So you can imagine the scales of justice being equal. All things being equal, the weight of the fact. That's the standard to demonstrate that there's a violation of someone's civil rights. So it's a much lower standard than beyond reasonable doubt, right? And so, because this is a civil rights title, there's some very specific processes that are outlined in Title IX to evaluate issues surrounding that civil right. So what I want to just update a little bit on is the process that goes into place whenever there is some sort of complaint lodged, some of the oddity things we do within a school system to ensure that as a system we are in compliance with Title IX, and just kind of give you an update as to what that looks like. Address specific questions you have about that process. To start with, I'd like to talk about the just annual auditing we do in the district to ensure that we're affording equal access for all things in the district. One thing we look at is facilities. When it comes to sport facilities, locker room facilities, lockers, equipment, all those things. Literally go and tour the school buildings, look at the facility. We identify issues that might be present. If the boys' locker rooms have all this new, updated, nice tile, and the girls' locker rooms are somewhat dilapidated, that sort of thing, that would be a... So we have to evaluate those things and make sure that we're working with our facilities management, with our athletic directors, with our building administrators to ensure that we have facilities that are fair, that are equitable. We evaluate all of those things. We evaluate the equipment. If the track team needs their uniforms, we make sure that boys, girls, all get new uniforms. It's not just one gets this and you all get the hand. We put things on a cycle replacement. Make sure that we are funding things. And so that's on an annual basis we evaluate. We work with our charters to ensure that the same things happen with their athletic department. The same goes with educational opportunities, clubs, all the things associated with our school environment. This happens every year. We do this throughout the year. Sometimes people ask questions, we evaluate it. make adjustments as we need. Now, let's talk about individual rights. Individual rights under Title IX. This is where things sometimes get a little swirly for folks, and people get lost in the process that takes place. So with my office, anytime there is a potential complaint lodged alleging some sort of Title IX violation, oftentimes that complaint comes to a teacher, comes to an administrator, it might come to a superintendent, it might come to another director. It comes from all different things. Sometimes it's submitted online, sometimes it's submitted through Safe2Tell, anonymous fashion. That complaint ultimately goes through a triage, kind of a process, where we evaluate if the complaint were real, would it constitute a violation of someone's rights? And if so, here's what processes we can bring to bear. And so the standard to determine if a complaint would possibly rise to a level of violation of someone's civil rights, we look basically at three different things to establish this took place. One, is this sexual harassment? Okay? Sexual harassment under the 2020 regulation says, is this harassment severe, pervasive, objectionably offensive? Okay? You have to meet that standard in order for it to qualify as a potential violation of civil rights. In the 2020 regulations, that's what has to be present. Now, Colorado law reads very differently. And if there's still an objective, that this harassment is objectively offensive, subjectively offensive, that falls under Colorado law, not Title IX. So we have to apply different processes, different things. Okay? So that's under sexual harassment. The other thing we look at is dating violence, domestic violence, and stalking. So the complaint alleges some sort of dating violence, domestic violence, stalking issues. That's something we would evaluate under Title IX. There's also criminal aspects to that, isn't there? So we have to partner with our law enforcement agencies to ensure that they have this information as mandatory reporters, that they're following through with their investigative processes to ensure that people are safe. This is being evaluated at the criminal side. Okay. Oftentimes we find that we have parallel investigations going on with lab. Can't intercede with one another. But they go down parallel tracks. That's on dating violence, domestic violence, and stalking issues. And the final thing we look at is, does this potential allegation fall into a category that would have to do with sexual assault, incest, sexual battery? And if that were to take place, that is also something we can apply the process to. All right, so let's talk about the process. Let's assume a complaint comes in. We evaluate it. Yes, it fits. What process do we put in place? So, there's really two paths to evaluating the merit to a Title IX allegation. The first is what's called informal resolution. The second, investigation. Informal resolution essentially is a path to address a potential civil rights violation where you sit down with the people involved. Complainant, the person who is the complainer, the one who's saying their rights have been violated, and the respondent, the person or people who are saying that they're being accused of violating something. So we sit down with the complainant and say, all right, you're alleging this violation. It seems on the face to meet this. What would you need so that you would have equal access? What kind of supportive measures would you need so that you could continue in what you're doing? We can address the harm that was caused and get things moving forward in a positive path. And we essentially come up with a plan. Right? They get to drive that ship. They can ask for whatever they want, legal, and it's reasonable, and it doesn't violate anyone else's rights. And that's something we can put into a resolution. Okay? Essentially, then we take that resolution, approach the respondent. All right, there's this allegation, here's the information we know, here's the evidence that's present, tell us about what happened. Essentially a statement saying, yeah, here was my involvement in this. say, all right, with this information, here's a path forward. We focus on supporting measures. We want you to be successful as well. We want you to move forward from this mistake. We want you to fail forward. Give you an opportunity to do better. Here's a path to success with that. So we focus on supportive measures, but there's also oftentimes a punitive aspect to that. Depending on the severity of the alleged violation, we'll determine what that punitive aspect looks like. It might be something as simple as a schedule change. It might include loss of ability to participate in a particular activity. It might include a suspension. It can even include an expulsion. When we look at these things and we line out this informal resolution, which is actually a very formal process, right? We line this out, everyone agrees to it, signatures are obtained, that becomes the path moving forward. And we follow that resolution for a full 7 years. And as time moves forward, things change. Parties want to change some of the things with us. We go back to the negotiating table. We talk through it. Everybody has to agree. So that's one path. The second path is an investigation. This is a lengthy process. Title IX investigations are set up to be run similar to like a congressional hearing. So if an investigation is warranted, there's really only one aspect of Title IX that mandates an investigation, and that's if there's an allegation of a staff member causing some sort of harm to a student, sexual way, or a dating violence domestic violence. You have to manage that through an investigation. Other than that, informal resolution is impossible. The complainant gets to make that decision initially. The respondent can agree, but they cannot default to the investigation. The investigation requires written notices that say, hey, here's the allegations, here's what you're investigating. The complainant gets it, the respondent gets it. Okay? They're put on notice to be investigated. Depending on what the allegation is and the situation and the potential outcomes, will dictate who does the investigation. It might be a building administrator. It might be an outside source. We bring in as a consultant. It might be myself. Not ideal, but sometimes that's what happens. Right now, I'm a Department one. Okay, it's been that way for the last many years. So the investigation proceeds. We serve notices to do interviews with the complainant, respondent, gather whatever video evidence is there, electronic evidence, witness statements from anybody that's present. We put all this together. We do interviews with the complainant, document everything that's there. Goes into a report. That report is then sent out for review to the complainant and respondent. They have a 10-day window to view everything that's there, the evidence. And they also have a 10-day window to view everything that's there, the report. They can provide written feedback, and that becomes part of the overall investigation. So, just with the 2 10-day reviews, we have a 20-day piece of responsibility. That doesn't even include all the interviews and everything that goes on. So typically now you're looking at a month. Long time, right? So while this is going on, trying to support everybody so they have equal access, we make sure that they respond and they're still doing their thing and people are moving forward. Okay? After those review periods, all the feedback's brought in, comment period between them, then that goes to an administrative judge known as a decision maker. The decision maker looks at everything that's there, but they get to conduct their own interviews. They have 30 days to bring forward a decision. In their decision, what they focus on is, one, was there a violation of someone's Title IX rights? 2, if so, who's responsible? If they can assign accountability, look at how do we correct violation. They will use supportive measures, punitive measures, or a combination of the two. And once the decision maker makes a decision, says, here's what we're doing, here's our path forward, that gets sent out to the complainant respondent. Then they have 7 calendar days to file an appeal. And an appeal is for cause, and there's very specific things as to what that looks like. Violation of policy and process, demonstrable bias of the investigator, demonstrable bias of the decision maker, or new information that's come to light that would change the outcome. Okay? Those are the reasons to appeal. There's 7 days. And once an appeal comes in, that goes to an appellate decision maker. Okay? And then they go through and look at everything that's there. They evaluate the appeal and see if it has merit. If it does, they can change the decision, or they can order a new investigation, or they can say, everything's fine, moving forward. Okay? So with this, we expect most investigations to take anywhere from typically around 45 days up to 6 months. Meanwhile, you have someone who's expressed a fairly significant civil rights harm. You have people that are accused of this. Try to balance all that out. Time for this investigation to take place. Pretty significant work. Not fast, very painful for everybody involved. Fortunately, we really work hard with all of our staff members, families, try to make this process as easy. And as we've seen throughout the history of Title IX, that it's rarely simple, really easy. A lot of feelings, emotions, what's in this, right? Because when we're talking about things that involve such intimate personal experiences, people involved and experience it. And the reality is that everyone's viewing the facts. And that's where gathering all the information, putting that to the decision maker to give an unbiased, very black and white view of the facts becomes very critical in this. So those are the process things that we put in place related to Title IX. Those are the paths to address any situation that might constitute a violation of civil rights under Title IX. Now, again, with the state of Colorado, there's other things related to this that are outside of Title IX that we also have to address. And we have to conduct a process as those as well. But that's part of what we do, and we support one another in this process. And so with university schools, I get the opportunity to basically be their coordinator and work with their teams to address things that come in. We partner on these things and we work through it. And this has been a very, very solid relationship that has developed since I've been able to step into this role. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to just talk about the process, talk about what this looks like. Shed a little bit of light on complexities, what's there. The state of things right now. And every single day there are court cases, there are rulings, there are OCR complaints that get filed that change the way the stuff gets implemented. So every single day there's new things that come into play. We have to adjust and shift. We do what we're doing. And it's a very complex situation that's always evolving, always changing. Welcome questions that you might have on any of the things I spoke to, things that might be on your mind related to
Are there any barriers to, like during a Title IX, are there any barriers to, sorry, not a teacher, staff like security and that kind of knowing that they're, that there's something that they might need to take protective precautions? Are there any barriers for the administration to share that with staff?
It depends. Privacy for the individuals involved is always very critical. The people who have the right to know everything in employment and respond. Outside of that, the answer is really it depends. If it's something that we need to institute supportive measures, and particular staff members need to know about generalities of things and what their role needs to be to implement supportive measures, those conversations take place. Under Title IX law, we can't publish Title IX documents in the campus. We can't publish formal resolutions in the campus. We can't publish basically anything that's a formal document in some sort of broad spectrum database that we staff can access and look at. And so we have to be very mindful about what we share and what we don't, because the nature of these type of complaints, there's a lot of personal matters involved.
The question I had was the mentioned the informal process when they all kind of signed at the end. If the complainant violates that, what has been your experience? You know, so if the complainant violates something that else.
So complainants are held to the same standard of resolution as the respondents. Okay. And oftentimes you will see resolutions that say things to the effect of no contact between the parties, third-party contact. Their friends, they're acting on their behalf. Unfortunately, sometimes complainants will violate those expectations. They'll have a clause oftentimes that says no retaliation. And because of the deeply personal nature of a lot of these things, frustration will boil over and they'll post something on social media about this person, about, aha, I got him, you know, or who knows what, right? And unfortunately, the law, they're held to the same standard in the resolution. So we have to apply the same discipline we would if it was the respondent. So most of the time, the violation of those resolutions results in a suspension. It's just the nature of things because it is a civil rights matter. And you know, we express this very clearly with our complainants as well as our respondents. Like, hey, this is a two-way street. You are agreeing to follow the same rules. And sometimes the unfortunate reality. But you know, we take measured approaches to all of it. Depends on the severity of what takes place as to what that appropriate discipline looks like. And then if we find there's a failure in the support measures, we'll adjust it with all the parties involved to ensure that we do the right thing.
Last question was, thank you. Can you explain what that process is like for what your thoughts around restorative conversations and how are both parties protected in that conversation? Because you know, kind of like the complainant speaking.
Well, so sort of practice is actually an element of leadership and communication. It's very near and dear to me. Actually, I'm a certified restorative practices instructor with the International Institute for Restorative. In order for restorative practice to work, one, the person that caused the harm has to be able to recognize and articulate the harm that caused and who was at that. Two, the person that experienced the harm has to be willing to discuss it and have a conversation with the person that caused the harm. If those two things are not present, there is no restoration. There is no restorative practice. Restorative measures, an opportunity to move forward in life apart from one another. But in the event that one has taken accountability for actions, they recognize that, yeah, this was harmful to these people, and willing to process through the restorative questions and articulate, like, here's how I can. And the person that was harmed wants to have that conversation and restore that relationship. Because that's what restorative practice is, right? It's restoring relationships, restoring standing. If those two things are present, then it's very effective. And you do the groundwork as the person helping to facilitate that conversation, make sure that everybody understands what their roles are, understands what the restorative questions are. You know, because they're slightly different for the person who's harmed and the person that caused the harm. So you go through those, you preload all this conversation. Then you sit down and you have a very clear set of standards and guidelines as to how we're going to treat each other with respect. you have that conversation and you rebuild the relationship. And so the Title IX, awesome to deal with it. But it's up to the individuals involved as to whether or not that happens. I'd say it's about 50-50 as to whether or not that happens.
When you talked about the informal resolution, you said that they have to come to the table and an agreement has to be reached by the two parties. So what happens to just push it into the investigation world if no common ground can be met by those two parties?
Correct. They essentially give up their rights to say what they would like to see happen. They can give feedback to the decision maker, but ultimately the decision maker can accept or reject that and do whatever they want. And so, our decision makers that we use within the district, they're very reasonable. So they're in that role for that purpose, right? And they're well trained and they take that feedback and they look to what's in the best interest of people involved and how can we help people move forward. And so, some people, they just want someone else to make the decision. Other folks, they want to have their hand in it. They want to be able to sit down and participate, express their ideas, and come up with a plan. But if they can't come to an agreement, it just goes through investigation through that process. Meanwhile, we still oftentimes put the supportive measures that would be part of an informal resolution in place to ensure that everybody's treated fairly.
All right, any additional questions? Thank you, Jim.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Okay, we'll move on to board reports and communication. Mike was speaking earlier about the student leadership being to give their announcement, and last week my daughter was one of them, so she's in 3rd grade. I got a video of it. Pretty hilarious, so really enjoyed that, just hearing their own voices. I couldn't imagine what it sounded like in the classroom, so it was definitely a proud moment for me. But other than that, big shout out to the softball team. I definitely love seeing Ethan lose to us, which is great. So I'm glad that they showed up and that we were able to see that. And I know that there's a lot of things moving in sports, so just a lot of extracurriculars. Thanks to everybody, how everything's going. So that's all I have. So we'll go to Lily.
I think it's been going good. I passed it around. Everyone's feeling about everything going on in school, and so far it's been pretty good. No one's complained too much, so that's always good. Like Mr. Lovato said, I've been able to intern with him, so that's really cool that our school has opportunities like that.
It's been good so far. Cross country just got over, so that was a super successful season for everybody. Everything in the school is looking good. No complaints like Lily said. Nothing I've heard. Speech and debates kicking off now, so we're gonna have tournaments every Saturday. Miss Weaver showed me a wonderful opportunity called the Colorado League of Charter Schools, so I've been able to have a couple of those meetings, and it's going super cool. I'm getting to learn more about what charter schools are, what's the benefit of charter schools, how do you even talk about charter schools. It's super neat actually, and I've been able to connect with some other students from other charter schools, and so it's a super neat opportunity.
Just go to the Capitol, right?
Yeah, we do. We get to take, I think they said 5 to 10 students to the state capitol. We get a tour of the state capitol. Yes?
A lot of what you said. It was great to get that notification that we softball beat Eaton that day. And that's really cool that we had a state golfer as well. The food drive, like you said, that's really incredible to see the community come together like that. It's just amazing to see kids carrying in so much food every day. hear about the excitement of keeping count and score. Trunk or treat was also a great time. I had a lot of fun giving out candy there. I think I had 3 kids helping me give out, and they each gave out like over 1,500 pieces each. So it was a lot of fun. I think there weren't candy as well. So kind of condom pencils. So I had some options that were not candy. But and then for capital planning, we have a meeting scheduled on December 1st for the master plan.
Not really a whole lot. I'm very happy with what I see where this school is going, just generally speaking. I think, as far as I can tell, I really want to appreciate you coming tonight, Jim. I'm the lawyer, so that stuff really just, I'm like eating it up.
Speaking your
Thank
language.
you. I was just like, wow, I didn't realize. That's cool. Thank you for coming. I'm very happy with where I see it going, and very appreciative of Ms. Weaver, Mr. Lovato, everyone else.
I'll just say a lot of the same. Trunk or treat was great. I'll say the Junior Bulldog recognition at the football night was awesome. I know the kids love that. Another opportunity to put on the jerseys and get out there together. Some good memories there. I think David has a birthday too, so just gonna give a shout out there. Happy birthday.
What is that?
Today? Yeah, you singing?
We can start it right now. How old? Oh, man.
A whole nother decade?
Not to put you on the spot.
Happy birthday, David.
Yeah.
Hang out with you guys.
Yeah, great birthday.
Yeah, I'll also just Sue another shout out as far as that clean audit. A lot of information, and they're doing a great job. So, and then also the food drive. I know my kids were excited about that. I think that's an awesome opportunity just to see the impact that Bulldogs can make, and especially at this time. So that's all I have.
On behalf of my colleagues and I want to thank everyone for participating in the trunk or treat. Thank you. Job security is fantastic. Breathless Coke, by the way.
I also gave out non-candy.
It was great to see so many kids participate. Makes me sick to think about how much candy my kids eat. Since then. Really is kind of disgusting. Much fun to see the community get together and just have a good time. As always, I'd just like to thank those who are working hard to provide a good environment for our kids. I should appreciate all the good things that are happening in our community.
Okay. Well, I'm pretty sure my son got the lion's share of all the candy you guys gave out. Yes. A couple of great things. I hear the comments about Eaton and the rivalry, and I also know that our marching band, a number of them very specifically went across the aisle after the band competition and made sure that they congratulated Eaton and stuff. We beat them, but they did it in a way that was makes a dad real proud. So, and that just speaks volumes about the program and the leadership that we have in that program, where it's all inclusive. So, just shout that one out. Entrepreneurship challenge today at UNC, and University had a team there. So, I can't say we walked away with any of the top scholarships, but it was a good. There were 13 teams there. 3 teams walked away with scholarships today, so that was great. It was great to see the team there. On the joint use side, real quick, I was informed as I was walking in that we were going to get curtains installed the week of Thanksgiving. So that is awesome. That's been a year plus in works. So I'm glad to hear that's finally going to happen. And we're still working. Jeff is working hard to try to come up with some solutions so that we can get some student training and some staff training on the audio system and replace a few parts of that that are in need of replacement. So still working through that.
piggyback off what he said, being at a lot of the football games, it's super awesome to see the band and their energy. And I'm always impressed with like just the way that they attack doing band. Just it's super cool to see. So they are like so pumped. I feel like I get more pumped for that than the game sometimes. And then to talk about, you keep talking about eating. I was actually at the school that day with my C team, and we unfortunately were not winning, but I could hear them winning over there, so that was like really cool to know that softball was doing what they were doing. So it's happy that they got to experience that.
Volleyball, I went to the other night and for regionals, and our girls gave thank you gift bags to their seniors, and then we also, like, clapped and gave them congratulations at the end. Their student section participated in that, and I really like to see when we try to recognize other schools and their contributions, because I ended, their season for that team. That was the end of their road for them, so it's great to instill kids that we need to look at others as well, not just ourselves. So
I guess I could push back on that. I should have mentioned during that. Got a from who was it? Who we played the night? The team that we played the night after our tournaments, right? Their cancer awareness, right? Our team versus donating part of our proceeds for the family that they were sponsoring. I think they donated about $400. That's the lowest, from the principal. Our kids were and how generous that was. Our team really do.
They raised a lot of money that night for their cancer awareness, so I'm not surprised. I think when the Sterling game that they went to, it was for little girls, so that wouldn't surprise me if it was Sterling, because that was a really, I just watched it on NFH. That team was still pretty good there, so that's neat that they. And I'll keep our fingers crossed for state starting tomorrow for volleyball since they're in postseason, so it's awesome too. I got to participate in the middle school dance on Friday night. And I'm probably the only teacher that loves going to the middle school dance. I absolutely love it. I have so much fun watching them, and like I walk by these boys who stop me to show me their dance they've made up, and they're like doing a fishing line or whatever. It's such a good opportunity for them, and it's a lot of fun. So I'm sure there was drama. I'm not saying there wasn't some drama. I'm sure there was, but I didn't see it. It looked like everybody was having a good time. And we started working on the calendar for the next year, so we'll be bringing that to you in a couple months, and so that's underway as well. And I checked like Notebook LM for the, in August, they changed the age requirement to 13. So they also got the message that how are we going to have a platform that allows you to create note cards and podcasts and study tools, but sorry, you can't use it till you're 18. So they apparently updated, so that's cool. Yeah. Okay. That's all I got. Sorry, that was long.
All good.
No, going off of middle school dances, that's quite the undertaking. My son went, and that kid is just ecstatic. He came, he was like just dripping with sweat when he left. He's like, it was so off, but it was so cool. So as awkward and interesting as they are at that age, I'm glad that we have that out there.
You have to wear I wear my earplugs.
Yeah, they said it was a little loud. It was kind of crazy. That's right. No, just a lot of great things. Just a lot of what you guys said. Same thing from the dietetic side of the world. That candy consumption is crazy, but that's all right. It's short season. We dive into the holidays, so.
Just downhill from Halloween.
That's right. From a foundation standpoint, not a whole lot since we met last. We did have Greg's honoring at the football game at the beginning of October. Well, we had a great turnout of supporters that came out to support him, and so we're actively working on the fundraising so that we have the funds available to do a good job in the monument sign and things to name the building. on that. We continue to collect funds and raise money for the school for their field trip fund that we're doing. I think we're right around 9 right now, so we need to send a check over. Yeah, and then we're just bring activities, hopefully to play another golf tournament. Slowly but surely, we're getting there.
Right. Okay, do we have an update for capital planning? I know that we
Meeting on December 1st.
Awesome. Okay, our next scheduled meeting will be our regular board meeting on December 10th. In this same very room. What's that?
Loves snacks, just need to bring snacks for us again. I'm hungry.
That's for sure. We give the dentist. Okay, we'll move to item 10 here, and we will be moving into executive session.
Oh, thank you. So, if like, other schools